Okay, Halloween Age 20. So we can take these. Now, Halloween Age 20 is a really good movie. It was awesome that they were able to bring Jamie Lee Curtis back. It would have been great if they had brought, John Carpenter. If John Carpenter had wanted to come back and do this film, I mean, that was the original intention. Jamie Lee Curtis wanted John Carpenter to direct it. I was happy with Steve Miner. He's directed 2 great Friday the 13th films, Part 2 and Part 3 in 3D. But it's like there's a duality I have with Halloween Age 20. I love the film. I think it's one of the best Halloween films. My problem with it is that it ignored parts 4, 5, and 6. Now, originally Kevin Williamson's treatment had a little connector to the other the 4, 5, and 6 of the Halloween series. For some reason, they didn't want to use it. They wanted to just ignore those stories and make this a direct sequel to Halloween 2. But there is still a little bit of an element that I feel ties it to Part 4, 5, and 6, and that's the fact that Laurie Strode had faked her death to go into hiding. That was the element of Halloween 4 that Jamie was orphaned because Laurie had died in a car crash. So it's like that was kind of there. What makes it complicated is that Laurie has her son still. Why would she have abandoned her daughter? And that's where you kind of go, okay, well, that's a little bit too much to think about. But this was a very good film. I remember when it came out. It was great to see Jamie Lee Curtis playing, her iconic role. I think it filled the void left by Donald Pleasence's passing. This was the first movie without Loomis in it. It's really felt, and I don't think they've ever been able to recapture that magic, even in the Rob Zombie movies where they brought in a new guy to play Loomis. Nothing can replace Donald Pleasence, in my opinion, and I think he was the heart and soul of Halloween films. But Age 20 is a good film. It's got a great cast. Josh Hartnett's great in it. Thought it was great that Janet Leigh made a cameo in it. I thought it was more tame in terms of the blood and gore factor, but it did have some disturbing deaths, and I thought that the showdown between Laurie and Michael was just, that was just what everybody was waiting for. And it was, if this was the way they were going to go out with this series, it was a kick-ass ending. No question about it. Love the film. I still think out of the Halloween films, like I said, I love the producer's cut of H6, but I'm gonna say I like 1, 2, 4, and then H20. I think those are the ones I love quite a bit, and I think they're just the best ones. Now, with the success of H20, it was only inevitable that they were gonna make another one. And I remember the Halloween Films website did post this to fans saying, would you like to see a Michael Myers-less Halloween, a la Season of the Witch? Thank God they didn't go that route, and people said they wanted to see Michael come back. Now, the beginning of Halloween Resurrection, I think, is very well done. They tie it back into Age 20, like, Laurie killed Michael. She cut his head off. How is he still alive? It shows that, Michael, that reminded me of old Michael, that he was tricking. He was tricky. He was like, he would do things that, would throw other characters off. And I thought that was kind of cool that he had switched places with a paramedic that had gone in to see him after he had supposedly died, and that Laurie had inadvertently killed an innocent man. Now, she's committed at the beginning of this, and Michael finds her. She traps him. The thing that I didn't like about Resurrection, and it's not so much Busta Rhymes, which I think people go off on tangents about. Busta Rhymes pretty much played himself here. He's played that type of character in Higher Learning. He was like that in Shaft. I mean, I've seen him play this guy many times before. That's who he is. So it didn't surprise me that that's how he acted in this film. My biggest surprise in this film was how they kind of blew over the fact that Laurie Strode is killed in this film. And I didn't like the way that she was killed. I liked it in the fact that it happened, but I didn't like the fact that there was no reaction to it after the fact. It's like he kills her and moves on. And I'm just like, okay, he killed what is essentially, next to Dr. Loomis, the most iconic character in the series. And it was just kind of like, oh, yeah, he killed her. So that was the part that really bothered me. I thought that the Myers house in this was perfect. It looked just like they did. They did a great job of reconstructing it on a soundstage, and it looked perfect. Some of the people in it were kind of grating. I had a hard time with the new lead in this. Yeah, I was just not crazy about the new lead, and she was played by... It's hard to pronounce her name. Bianca... Yalick? Wasn't crazy about her. I did think that Sean Patrick Thomas was good in it. He was probably the only character I actually really liked. But I did think Brad Loree did a great job playing Michael. I was happy that Rick Rosenthal came back to direct it. I don't hate it like some people do. I think it's one of the weaker Halloween films. I'd put it probably with Halloween 5 as the two weakest in the series. Just not that great, but not horrible anyway. It's still a film I watch, and I still enjoy it from time to time. I had hoped that if they had made another Halloween film that they would have connected it to this one, but you know, the movie did do well, and but when I heard that Rob Zombie was going to do a Halloween film, I figured that they were going to probably reboot it, because that was, you know, this film, Halloween Resurrection, came out before the Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out in 2003, and after that, that's what they were doing. They were rebooting these old properties instead of making sequel after sequel. So now we're moving on to the Rob Zombie films, and put them out here. Now, it's hard for me to say how I felt when I heard they were going to do a remake of the original Halloween. It was kind of originally it was how I felt about Psycho. You know, you just can't redo it. Rob Zombie was somebody I wasn't really that familiar with when the film came out. I had seen Devil's Rejects, but I hadn't seen House of a Thousand Corpses, so I was kind of not a big fan of Devil's Rejects. Now that I have seen House of a Thousand, and I rewatched Devil's Rejects, I do appreciate both films and like them very much. When I heard he was going to do Halloween, I knew he was going to make it much more violent, much darker than Carpenter, and like everybody else, I was curious like who he was going to get to play in the cast, because you have, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis, Donald Pleasance, you know, PJ Soles, you know, Nancy Loomis. You have some, you know, great actors who are going to play them in these new films. I think, despite, you know, many Halloween purists hating on Rob Zombie for his films, I really enjoy them. I do think he made Michael Myers a much scarier entity again. Now, you do find out a lot more about Michael in Zombies films. You do get a background on him. You find out like how his childhood was, what type of kid he was before he becomes the, you know, silent stalker killer that we all know. Casting wise, I think Tyler Mane was awesome as Michael Myers, so as well as I think his name is Dag. I always have a hard time pronouncing his last name, but the little boy in the original, Rob Zombie's first Halloween film that played young Michael was very disturbing. He did a great job in the role. I think Rob Zombie was also great in casting Danielle Harris and bringing her back to this series after she was so, you know, unfairly kicked out of, or, you know, appearing in Halloween 6. She did a great job playing in this film, and you know, it was great to see her sort of come back to the Halloween universe, and I was happy that she was able to at least do 2 films. She did a great job. Scout Taylor Compton, some people like her, some people don't. I think she did a great job as Laurie, and not trying to play her as Jamie Lee Curtis played her. That was something that was going to be tricky. and I think it was smart that Zombie chose an unknown to play her. She did a great job to me, especially in the first one, where she's really not in it, but she establishes the character very early, because, you know, you got to think the first hour of this film is young Michael in the institution with Loomis. And speaking of Loomis, that was the tough one for me. I mean, originally I heard that they were trying to get Ben Kingsley to play Loomis. I think there was a couple other actors that I can't recall offhand, but Ben Kingsley was one that stood out. I thought he might have been a good one, but Malcolm McDowell was a great Loomis. Very different. I think it did help that he hadn't seen the original Halloween, as hard as that is to imagine, but, you know, it does happen. But he did a very good job as Loomis, playing Loomis very differently. Loomis is more self-centered in these films, especially, I mean, early on in the original Halloween, you see it. He's in Rob Zombie's Halloween. You do see that Loomis is much different than Pleasance played, and Pleasance was Captain Ahab out to get Moby Dick. And this, you know, Loomis is in it for the press. You know, he's in it to sell his book and to make a name for himself. So much different characterization of Loomis. I think Malcolm McDowell brought his, you know, his own flavor to the role, which is great, because I mean, that's all you can do with this, and having not seen the original classic Carpenter film, I think benefited him playing the role. Rob Zombie's direction is very good in this film, I think. A lot of people will slam him for the overuse of kind of inbred, hick kind of stereotype, you know, or, you know, just, I don't know, but it doesn't bother me. I mean, people like went on and on about the fact that all the characters have long hair in the beginning of it, and I'm like, it's just sort of nitpicking bullshit in my opinion. Of course Rob Zombie's going to bring, you know, his style to this film. He's not going to try to reincorporate what Carpenter did or try to emulate that, or, you know, he did do a couple of homage scenes similar to Carpenter's film, mostly the one where, you know, Laurie sees Michael outside the schoolhouse. He did it from a different angle. There was a couple other things, like the ghost, where Michael has the sheet over him when he goes up to Linda with the beer. So yeah, I mean, there's a couple things he pays homage, but this is very much Rob Zombie's film, and I think it's a great film. It's a film I saw twice in the movie theater. The first time I saw it, I was kind of like taken aback a little bit, because it was different, very different from, you know, what I was used to with a Halloween film. But when I saw it the second time, I really appreciated what Rob Zombie tried to do. He just tried to bring something fresh to a very stale film series. Because after Resurrection, it's like, yeah, I would have liked to have seen a continuation of that story, but where else do you go? Once you kill Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis is gone, where do you go with that story? So I don't really have that big of a problem with them reinventing it and starting a new storyline. It was very well done. The film is very graphic. There's a lot more graphic violence in it than the Carpenter film, and even the films prior to this film, and the sequels that have come before this. But, you know, I was happy with it. I'm glad the movie was a success. There are people that do like it, and it is one that I completely appreciate and enjoy watching. So from here, we're going to go into Halloween 2.